So what is TTL? We just use TTL in our flash. And TTL is, and I just said I don't like anything auto in a sense, but TTL is an auto metering system. It's come a long way. I say TTL instead of E or ITTL, as we said earlier. But just to let you know, we're in the third generation of TTL technology. Minolta years ago developed it, Nikon kind of borrowed it, and then Canon kind of borrowed it again, but it's all the same. It doesn't matter if you're Canon, it doesn't matter if you're Nikon, it doesn't matter if you're Sony, it doesn't matter. It's all the same technology. And the way it is, and I want to read this to you because this is what we were doing with the on-camera flash. The flash is on the camera. TTL is a photographic term describing a feature of cameras capable of measuring light levels in a scene through their lens. This information can then be used to select the proper exposure and or control the amount of light emitted from the flash to the camera. So what just happened on that flash, how I got that proper exposure. When Macy was standing here, I set all my camera settings just like I had. Remember I said I got the ambient exactly where I wanted it to be. Now I'm not touching my camera settings anymore. Happy, I'm going to my flash. I turn my flash on. And I take the photo, and it seems to be proper exposure on her. I didn't really have to adjust anything at even exposure. How did that happen? Well, what happens is when I push that button on my camera, and we don't need to switch over to tethering. I just want to show this. When I push the button here, I'll raise it up so it's a little faster. It looks like one flash. What's actually happening is when I push the button all the way down, halfway down it focuses, all the way down, it takes the image. But in that split second, all this happens. The flash, the camera goes, wait a minute, I got a flash on top of my camera. It's on, it's in TTL mode. ETTL for Canon, ITTL for Nikon. It's going to send out, the camera commands the flash to send out a pre-flash of 1/32 power. So in that flash that looks like one flash, there's a bunch of flash bursts going off. If you could film it and slow it down, it's like a Morse code of light. It's a bunch of little pulses. The very first pulse, it sends out a pre-flash of 1/32 power. That 1/32 is important because that's the known amount of light. It goes, it bounced off Macy, came back through the lens, and with the amount of light that came back through the lens, the camera knew that that light originated at 1/32 power, so it did its calculation to get proper exposure from that. If a little bit of light came through, it would do its calculation to tell it to output more light in the final exposure. If a lot of light came through, it would do its calculations and tell it to lower the power. But then you have the adjustments, which is where I messed up and forgot to change, and I can raise it up or raise it down, the power, lower it down, the power. So again, as I've been saying, this technology is great, but you're the final artist. So it's going to do its calculations, and if the calculation is incorrect for your liking or not what you want, you can raise or lower it to what you need. Yes?
Mike, you're referring to adjusting your power. You're referring to
Flash compensation.
flash compensation. The in-camera flash compensation.
No, the external flash compensation. Yeah, the in-camera would be, well, technically there is no one here. You can adjust it in-camera as well.
That's what I...
But with an external flash, I highly suggest you adjusting it on the external flash. The main reason, on your camera, if you look at your camera, you're going to have the meter that you normally see. And that's the exposure compensation meter. That's the ambient light meter, basically. That is this, in a sense, in your camera. The flash compensation is the power of your flash. But to see that in your camera, unless you have one of the pro cameras that actually has 2 meters in it, you have to actually push the flash, a button on your camera, and then that metering mode, the exposure mode meter will actually change to your flash compensation meter. I don't like that because if I have a problem, I want to see everything right away. I don't want to have to push another button to know which one's what. And I might get confused in a fast-paced situation where I'm starting to freak out that my exposure compensation meter is my flash compensation meter. And so by having an external, I literally see my power right on the back of my LCD. I literally can see in my camera what my exposure compensation is. I can see on the back of my flash compensation, and I can adjust and be happy. But that's also why I say I adjust my camera settings first and then don't touch them. and then just adjust my flash compensation to adjust for whatever I'm photographing. So in a sense, your exposure compensation is controlling your ambient light. Your flash compensation is controlling your foreground, which is, in this case, Macy, our model, our subject. Does that make sense?
Very clear.
Good. Any other questions real quick? No? Okay, so TTL will actually do that every single time. That pre-flash, bounce back through the lens, comes back, gives the proper calculations, and then gives the proper amount of light, what it thinks is proper amount of light. It's technically a reflective amount of light because it's reflecting off the surface. And that's the key to TTL. And where so many people mess up with TTL, because with reflective surface, you can always trick it. So Macy had dark hair and she had a dark purple shirt on. So pretty much what we consider that in photography, low key. Everything was dark, which is great. But if you get a groom, a dark African-American groom wearing a white tux, completely different exposures, you can have problems with TTL because I can meter on his face at one point and it's going to give me a reflective source if I'm using spot metering, or I can meter on his shirt, his tux, that white tux, and it's going to give me a completely different metering. So lots of times TTL works flawless, but the photographer is metering on something incorrectly or different each time, which gives them a completely different flash exposure compensation. And unfortunately, as a human being, we don't want to blame ourselves too much. We seem to blame the technology. And so it would be the TTL's fault and not the human input fault. Now, it can help metering modes. I said, what is the I said spot metering. If I use a value tube, which is matrix for Nikon, it takes everything in play, it does help. So now it's taking in everything that I actually see in that image. But when I have a really difficult situation like that, I put it on spot meter and I will meter on his face or her face because that is what the image is about. And maybe I'll underexpose it a little bit so that flash won't blow out that white tux or that white wedding gown. But that's how TTL works. So I literally can come in here, I adjust it, I shoot it, and if it's too bright or too low, or not bright enough, I'll adjust my flash compensation to adjust for that. It depends on how much light, which is where we're going next. It depends on how much light I take away and everything else. Okay, so in TTL, the modes are adjusted in numbers. We're going to talk about manual in a minute after the break, but in TTL, the modes are adjusted in actual 1/3 stops. So you're literally can be at, if you see on the flash back there, it says plus 1/3. That is plus 1/3 of a flash exposure compensation higher than what normal is. If you're at even, there won't be any numbers where that plus 1/3 is on Canon. Nikon works very, very similar. On the back of Nikon, you'll actually have 1, 2, 3 numbers up and down that you can change. It's very similar, but in TTL mode, in Canon, you'll have the 1/3. So it'll be 1/3, it'll be 2/3, it'll be 1. 1 and 1/3, 1 and 2/3, 2. And you can go all the way up to 3, plus 3, and you can always go down to -3. So you have 6 full, in a sense, stops of power change built into your flash. And you saw my mess up earlier when I did plus 3, it actually works. So when I raise it up, it's giving me what it thinks is proper exposure, but it's saying, hey, you're the boss, you want plus 3, so I'm giving you plus 3 too. And obviously it didn't work out too well in that case. So you want to be able to simply adjust, and that's that custom function I talked about, number 13 in the Canon flashes, where I can simply just dial that dial in the back to adjust the flash compensation. It really helps. I don't have to hit the set button. Nikon, you can just hit the button up and down. It's a lot easier, I think, in the whole scale of things. So here's the whole scale of things. I didn't leave the fractions in, but you have all the way up to 3 power, and you have all the way down to the -3 power. When in doubt, start off at even. Start off at 0. And when you're learning this, and I'm going to repeat this several times this week, when you're learning this, make big steps in your change. Don't just go from, oh, I take the shot and it looks all right, but let me just raise it to plus 1/3. Raise it to plus 1 or plus 2 even. See what that light is doing. See where it's falling on your subject. Because once you see it and you know what that flash is putting out, then you can fine tune it, but you got to see it before you can do it. And that's one of the hardest things about flash photography is seeing the light to know where, 1, to place it, but 2, how to control it. So when you're first starting, just like I did here, I made mistakes on purpose. I want you to raise it up or lower it drastically so you can see what it does. So, how can we capture images differently with the flash on camera and TTL mode compared to natural light only? Natural light photography is, well, we do it all the time. I think light is light, and I think this is a lot of people, we do get hung up. Susie and I both get hung up on off-camera lighting all the time because that's our passion, and it's our go-to. It's like the easy thing in the toolbox, but as I said earlier, you don't ever want to stop challenging yourself. And so we review each other's images all the time, and we'll come up from the beach and she'll just be so excited. She'll get an image and it's an awesome image. It's beautiful. And I go, wow, look at that natural light you missed. And then she gets mad at me and calls me a few choice words because I'm her husband. And we move on, but she realizes it, and she does the same to me, that we're so hung up on that one style of lighting that we missed the other light that was around us. Flash photography is just another form of light. It's artificial, but it's still part of the ambient world, another type of light. So with natural light, you usually have to overexpose your exposure compensation when you're outside to get enough light in their eyes. And so you blow out the background, the grass kind of looks lime green instead of the deep green that it is, because you got to get enough light in their eyes, because that's what we're photographing as people. You got to get the light in their eyes. And if you're like me, though I have makeup on today, I normally have giant eye bags under my eyes, and so you really have to get a lot of light in their eyes. With flash photography, you can lower the background down and then allow that flash to just slightly kiss their face to lighten up their face. And so you get the deep greens that we normally see with our human eye, and then you don't have to be so dramatic. You can still, this doesn't look that flashy. It looks, I mean, it has flash in it, but it's not that over dramatic look. But you can. The image they use for our main image, which is the girl on the beach, that's a dramatic image. So we easily can do that. Or we can make it look very much like natural light with just a little kiss of light in their eyes, or we can drop it down a little bit. You're in complete control outside of what you want the image to look like. And that's what I like flash photography. That's why Susie and I get so hung up on flash photography, because we can do anything with it. And natural to us sometimes is like, I'm missing something, but then when we get the image, we're like, oh God, this image is gorgeous. But it just seems like because we love flash so much. So basically what we're going to go from here is I want to start you understanding the steps of how to work inside and outside. And a lot of people think that's different, and it's not. The exact same steps inside or outside, they're just different numbers. But how you can actually control how much background you want to have exposure-wise and how much foreground you want to have. So as we said at the beginning, when our host asked how many problems, and one of you said, I have lots of problems of capturing that light outside, that blue sky or whatever it is, and then still exposed for my subject. I want to start getting you guys to understand how that works with flash on the camera. That makes sense. All right, so here, compared to the other image, this image, natural light, blows out everything, meter for her, it's a beautiful image. It's one of my favorite seniors we've ever had. She's this year. And so we take the shot, but if you look real close, because it's wide angle, it's a little dark in her eyes. I mean, really, we needed a little reflector for a little pop in the eyes or something, but it works because it's a wider angle. If it was a tighter shot, it wouldn't have worked so much because her eyes would have looked a little muddy. The next time you ever go to a trade show, you go to Imaging PPA, Imaging USA, it's in Nashville coming up in January, and walk through the print competition, you'll see all the prints that scored a high print, which they'll be hanging, they all have light in their eyes. They have that pop. There's a reflection in their eyes. Every time you see a magazine article, a magazine print, you're going to have a pop in their eyes. We as humans don't really, as photographers, we're going to look at it, but as a general public, they don't look at the light in the eyes. They just know that that image looks good. If you took the same shot and didn't have light in the eyes, they're dead eyes. It's a dead image. It doesn't look as good. That is one key when we're in portraits. My goal is you have to see the color of their eyes. I don't care if it's my wife, who's full Korean, that has very, very dark eyes. There's still a separation between the color of her eyes and her pupil. And I fail as an artist, as a photographer, if I can't see that color. And so that's what I use my flash for lots of times, is to see that color of her eyes. If you have someone with light eyes, it's easy. Like me with blue eyes, they shine. But that's easy. So I would lower the flash down a little bit and get just a little bit of light in their eyes. But here, this is great. I like it. But here what we did is we metered mainly for the sun coming in on her head. Because that sun is so bright. that if this was natural light, it's almost blown out here, but if it was natural light, no flash, it would be really blown out. I mean, almost to the point where my eye goes to the brightest part of her hair, not her eyes. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up. Whatever the brightest item is in the image, the human will go to it. Or if you're using red or yellows. There's a coincidence why a lot of fast food restaurants use reds and yellows in their marketing, because those are really, really predominant colors for the human eye to look at. So I would meter for her hair in my camera, or if I had a light meter for that, and then that lowers the background, my exposure compensation in my camera, that lowers it, and then I'm adjusting my flash compensation to give me the proper amount of light in her eyes. Does that make sense? Yes?
So this isn't an on-camera flash, so correct? Is this a...
This is actually a little off-camera, yeah. But we do on-camera all the time, the same key, because the way that we shoot off-camera is we use a flash on-camera as our master, as our transmitter. And so I will literally just take that flash away and then just use on-camera. Because if I just need... Kurt Vauclain, he's been on Creative Live, he's an amazing artist. When I was teaching him off-camera lighting years ago, he completely revolutionized my world. I gave him some tips and he gave me some tips, which is one reason why I love teaching, because you learn so much. And he uses off-camera lighting, but he has the flash on the camera, very low power, and just giving a little kiss of light in the eyes every time. And that's the person that really instilled in me that I gotta have that light in the eyes. I have to have it. I don't shoot the way he does, but so many of his images are on-camera lighting. He might use a reflector on the side and a flash up front on camera. And it really allowed me to see, because I'm such an off-camera freak, that I'm like, wait a minute, this is a whole nother way of doing this, and it's so effective. But he comes from another old school way that he uses a tripod everywhere he goes. And I know he's on it. If you haven't seen his Creative Live class, you ought to buy it, because he's a hoot. He's a clown from Louisiana and Houma, and he's just a great guy. And so I went down there and just followed him, and it was just an amazing way to watch him how to work. And so for me here, you'd have the light coming in, but you have to be really careful, because I know the light's not very far off to the side on this image, and why would that be by looking at it?
The off, which light?
The off-camera light. I know that that it's literally right beside the camera.
Just because where it's hitting her face.
If I had it off to the side with her hair, you'd have shadows all the way
Yeah.
across her face with her hair. And so I know when you said that it's off-camera, yes, the odds are it is off-camera, but literally you could have gotten this almost exact same results with a flash on camera. Because if it's too far, with her bangs coming down on both sides, you'd have these horrible shadows if you were using a flash. Okay, so now we're getting to high-speed sync, and this is what I kind of want to end on in a segment. We're going to get into it. How many people have used high-speed sync before? Well, I like that. Oh, you?
Kind of.
Oh, she's like, oh, no one's raising their hand. I'm not going to raise it. High-speed sync is a wonderful thing, but you can only, and it's in here, and I'm going to show you, but high-speed sync is basically the ability of your flash to get above that flash sync speed. So if it's 1/200th of a second or 1/250th of a second, you can get above that flash sync speed. There's some drawbacks to it, and we're going to go over that. But what's nice about it is, for Canon, it's a functionality of your flash. So you just push this little button. It's that little lightning bolt there. For Nikon, I like your system better. It's a functionality of the actual menu system. And this is one of my old camera bodies. Excuse me, but you go into, as I call it, the pencil mode, the pencil menu, and then you go into your flash sync settings, and the new cameras will actually have either 1/250th or 1/320 of a second, and it's called FP Auto or Auto FP, whatever you want to call it, AUFP. That's the high-speed sync. And Nikon has started using the high-speed sync terminology, because that seems to been now taken over as the proper term. The reason why I like Nikon's better than Canon's is because I can set it in this menu and never have to worry about it again. Canon's is a part of the flash, and so every time I change the batteries out of that flash, every time I turn it on, I have to physically look and make sure my high-speed sync is on. So you'll have to turn that on all the time. Because the problem is, if you fail to look at that for Canon and you go outside in a bright situation, and I'm in A or AV mode, and so I set my shutter speed, my f-stop at 2.8 outside on a bright day, my shutter speed should be around 1/2000th of a second probably. And if that high-speed sync isn't on, guess what's going to happen? It's going to drop down to 1/200th of a second. So that's so first of all, your images are going to be completely white, because you're letting too much light in. And you're going to get so much in the mood, you'll be taking 4 or 5 shots before you look and realize it, and now you've lost those images. But secondly, the greatest telltale sign of this, the warning for you as Canon users and Nikon, but Nikon you won't have it because you set it and forget it, is if you push the button halfway down, which starts the TTL metering, the f-stop and shutter speed, and your f-stop is at 2.8 because you set it, and your shutter speed should be way above that, it's only going to be at 200, and the 200 will be blinking. Or if your flash sync speed is at 250, the 250 will be blinking. That's telling you, hey, idiot, there's a problem here. You're going to have a problem with your flash or your image.
So you
And I didn't call you an idiot directly, sir.
So you can turn the high-speed sync control on and leave it on all the time?
Absolutely. In fact, if you find a reason, and this goes to everyone out in Creative Live, any of y'all find a reason that there's a reason why you shouldn't have high-speed sync on, call me any time of the day or night. And you tell me why. But it better be a good reason if it's in the middle of the night, because there's not a good reason. I've taught this class for 15 years on TTO, and I've never found a good reason. Leave it and forget it. That's why I like Nikon better, because if it drops below your sync speed, you're back to normal. So leave it. The only possible way is when you get above your sync speed, it's going to use battery power, but you're going to have to do that if you want to use high-speed sync. So that's not really a reason. So, and we're going to kind of go into that in just a second on what it does. So this is what happens. So if you get above your flash sync speed, if I have my flash on, can you move over to tethering real quick? And I'm going to take high-speed sync off, and I'm just going to take a picture of this. It's not going to be no big deal. And so flat just shows the point. So that's my image. Now I'm going to go above my flash sync speed without high-speed sync on. Haha, it didn't work. Hang on. I have high-speed sync on. That would be why. Like an idiot. So I get above my flash sync speed. You're going to have that black.
It came on. It's behind. The 2 pictures were behind.
Oh, sorry. I need to slow down. I forget. So
It's black and white.
that's 1/200th of a second. Are we good? It won't even let me get above my flash sync speed now. Let me get out of this. That's my problem. So it's not even letting me get above it. There we go. When I go from 1/2000th of a second and I push my button, it won't let me get above my flash sync speed. Now, if I had my strobe on, I don't have my, use this. If I had a flash, if I'm in the studio, and I'm just doing this to show you how this system will work, so bear with me because I want to be able to show you. Make sure I'm all on the same channels. I'm like an idiot now because it won't work, because it won't tell you. Anyway, we'll get past this. We'll show you. You're going to have the black line at the bottom of your image. And I want to show you why that happens. So roughly you have 2 curtains. We kind of talked about it in the first and second curtain. You have your first curtain, it opens up, you take the image, second curtain closes. That's natural light. Flash photography, first curtain opens all the way up, flash goes off, second curtain closes, and resets. Your shutter in most of these cameras can go up to 1/8000th of a second. There is no possible way that a shutter can open and close at 1/8000th of a second and a flash can go off. It's just too fast. You're just a little bit slit. So what these engineers have done, which I think is amazing, is as that first curtain opens up and you're in high-speed sync, a flash fires multiple times. So it's fire, 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 and as the second one closes, it's fire and fire and fire and fire and fire, and then resets. So instead of one giant flash burst, you're getting a bunch of smaller flash bursts. The faster the shutter, the smaller, the faster the shutter, the smaller the slit of light that flash has to shove light through. So instead of 1/200th of a second, if you're my subject, I can have my flash right here, and it's going to expose you properly. At 1/400th of a second, maybe I have to have a little closer. 1/1000th of a second, I got to be right here, and 1/8000th of a second, I have to have that light right on top of you. because even at the same amount of power, there's just so much little space that a light can go through to expose you properly. But the benefits of that are, now I can shoot at 2.8 outside in bright sunlight and shoot at 1/2000 of a second. I don't have this problem anymore. I won't have any of that. This is also one huge advantage that your flashes, your speed lights can do over strobes. No strobe can do high-speed sync. They can do a mock high-speed sync. They can get slightly above their flash sync speed. The Pocket Wizards have a hypersync and some other stuff so they can slightly get above it, but it's not going to be a true high-speed sync because strobes only have one big flash burst, not multiple small ones. So high-speed sync is a valuable, valuable, valuable lesson, and we're ending the segment. So high-speed sync is a valuable lesson. Leave it on all the time. Leave it on, forget it. Canon people, you have to get used to when you turn your flash on, you look for that little lightning bolt in H on the back of your LCD. It'll be in the top left side of your LCD, and if it's not there, just push it before you take the first photograph. If you use it, great. If you don't, great, but it's there. Nikon, again, I love you. And the problem is with Canon, this is one reason why Nikon, their pop-up flash, and we're not talking really pop-up flash today, we're talking about external flash, but their pop-up flash can do high-speed sync. Where Canon's pop-up flashes, if you do off-camera lighting like the 7D, the 7D can do, the pop-up flash can be a master, but it can't do high-speed sync because it's not built into the body of a Canon and it is built into the body of a Nikon. So +1 to the Nikon people big time.
But can high-speed sync be done off camera?
Absolutely, and we're gonna get into that more after. We're gonna talk about TTL and off-camera lighting and stuff a little bit later in the next segment. But yeah, absolutely, that is my playground. Off-camera lighting, manual, and off-camera lighting and TTL with all high-speed sync. You only can do high-speed sync in TTL mode though. You cannot do it in manual. And why would that be? And we're gonna end the segment on that.
Doesn't know how much power to put out.
Exactly. It has to do all that. That's genius. Thank you. I'm actually might be teaching something. So it has to do all that metering for it to know how much flash to put out. And in manual mode, it has no clue. It's just whatever you set it, it's going to fire, and it won't do it. So it's a functionality of TTL. And so it goes back to what I said about my ugly beach and have the chemical company in the background. I can't use a flash. I had to blur out the background. The only option I had was TTL and high-speed sync. And that's how I kind of learned all this, because it was a need of necessity. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
For the high-speed sync, what is really a practical shutter speed to use high-speed sync or to effectively get high-speed sync?
1/2000 of a second or down, you can get away with it, but it all depends on the light. Practicality is the environment that you're in, so it's all going to change. But I usually try not to get above 1/2000 of a second, because then you're going to get really a hard time of having that one flash. Just simply is not going to be enough to light your subject. The reality is, it depends on what I want. If I literally need to be at 2.8, I'll shoot at 1/8000 of a second if I have to. It gives me that freedom, but because in manual mode, I'm stuck at 1/200th or 1/250th of a second, and outside at f11 or f16, everything's in focus. And I'm stuck, so my creativity is locked into that zone. Well, with high-speed sync, I can do whatever I want. I can do a 2.8, and then I can literally just change my f-stop to f11 and take another shot and have one completely in focus, one completely blurred out in the background. And I don't have to change anything else. Yes, sir.
So if I'm in high-speed sync and I'm also that has to be in ETTL. When I switch out of that to manual, will it automatically switch out of
You don't have to
high-speed
worry about
sync?
anything. But if you get above your flash sync speed, you'll start having that black
Yeah,
light.
I understand.
Well, cool. I think that's the end of this segment. I think we're doing great. I love these questions.
How about some more?
Absolutely.
Ready for some more? Because the internet's they have a ton of questions. And we want to thank you guys out there on the internet for your fantastic questions. Mike is here for 2 days, so we're getting to as many on-topic questions, but we are saving your questions because a lot of this stuff he'll definitely cover during this
Got a lot more coming.
A
Absolutely.
lot more coming. So I'm going to throw this one at you from Isabel, who says, when you are metering in your camera while using TTL, should you aim to have a well-exposed photo, so be it 0, or if you are 2 stops underexposed, will the flash fire enough light to reach a good exposure?
First of all, that is a great, thoughtful question. I love it. And the answer is yes on both.
Okay.
The beauty of TTL is whatever your camera setting is, that first exposure compensation, lower it, raise it, TTL is still going to do that metering system that we talked about and give you what it thinks is proper amount of light. So if I did the natural light where I just want a little bit of light, I'm not going to be very underexposed on my exposure compensation, and it's going to give me a proper amount of light. But if I want to get edgy and drastic and I want to drop it 2-3 stops, it's still going to give me the proper amount of light. And so it all comes back to the whole term is you add flash to taste, just like you add salt to your food to taste. You might like only half a stop under, I might like 3 stops under. That's the artist. So you can do both with this.
Great, fantastic. And then this one is from Remo, who says, I have a flash with both TTL and auto flash mode. And it seems to me that flash auto mode recharges much faster than TTL. Any ideas there?
Yeah, there's not as much metering going on.
Okay.
And that kind of goes into Canon. On the back of your flash, a good telltale sign of when your battery power is dying, when you first turn it on and you're in ETTL mode, it's going to say ETTL, which again is the 3rd generation. It does the most mathematical formula. As your batteries start to die, 1, it won't recharge as fast, but
Right.
2, it's going to just say TTL on the back. The E will disappear because it's saying, guys, I'm struggling here. I can't do all this mathematics, so I'm only going to do the TTL part, which is the 1st generation. And then if you don't change your batteries out after that, it's going to scream at you because it's only going to be in manual mode and says, dude, I'm dying. All I can do is just fire this flash. Will you please freaking change my batteries? So that is a great sign on the back of Canon flashes that is exactly what he's talking about.